Hi everybody, my name is Marcos Cassiano, and I'm here to tell you about some of my tales from the road, some of my adventures across the highways and byways of the U.S., Canada, but never Mexico. So actually this tale comes to us from Brazil, and part of it does take place on a highway. So this happens, this little adventure has to do with tinnitus and how I got it and how I deal with it to this day. I've had it for about 30 years. And the way it happened was, first of all, I was always aware of a tinnitus and ringing in the ear because back in the 80s even, I was subscribing to Modern Drummer magazine, and every now and then they would have articles on hearing protection and things like that and tinnitus. So that's how I first became aware of it, but I didn't take it that serious because I'm like in my 20s and I'm just listening to it. But I remember in one of the articles it talked about taking this test. Put one earplug in your ear and your other one open, and after you play at the end of the night, you pull out that earplug, and if you notice a ringing, then you're playing too loud. And it's true. I don't know where I found these earplugs from, but I put one in my ear, I left the other one open, played the night. At the end of the night, pull out the earplug, and immediately when you pull it out, you'll hear a ring. And it's actually coming from the other ear, but you don't really notice it at first. And I said, okay, so I'm playing too loud. So off and on for a while, I would use earplugs. I had these basically kind of army issue earplugs, because you can imagine how good those were. And I would wear them sometimes, and sometimes I wouldn't. I wasn't really that consistent because I really didn't think that I was playing that loud or the band was that loud. But I look back and you don't really have to be that loud. It just has to be at a certain threshold, and it has to be constant. I think anything more than like 77 dB, 75, and if it's constant, it's too loud. It's not like just one big burst, and it's obviously too loud because I was never uncomfortable playing at the volume that we were playing at, So I remember this goes back to like about 1993 now. This is when I first discovered it. I actually happened to be swimming. It was in the summertime. I was at a swimming pool, and I always had problems getting water in my ear. It seemed like there was always getting water in my ear. It's hard to get them out. On this particular occasion, I got water in my ear, and at the same time while the water was in there, it's when I first started hearing the ring. And I thought that the ringing had to do with the water. I said, once I get the water out, the ringing will stop. And it seemed like for like a week I kept thinking, I got water in my ear, it's causing the ring. Finally I realized that it wasn't water in my ear, it was already gone. But what had happened was I was developing tinnitus, or some people call it tinnitus. I'm going to call it tinnitus for this show here. So anyways, at that point, I started taking it a little more serious and started using, again, these earplugs that I had found, and I would have to change them quite often because some of them, the original ones I had, they would get hard and then they wouldn't fit in the ear good, so I would have to toss them. I'd get some more, and I think eventually I found these earplugs at Walmart that they kind of screw in, and it had a little thing on them that you can poke them in your ear and kind of like screw them in, and they work pretty good. And again, they would wear out, they'd fall apart. And then fast forward to like maybe the 2004, I finally broke down and bought some custom-made earplugs. Now in the U.S. they were quite expensive. These plugs that I bought, and I think it was 04 or 05, they were like $145. And fast forward, in Brazil now, I get them for like less than $30. So anyways, I finally got the custom plugs made, and it really made a difference. They fit in there. They fit in there real nice. They have this little thing. You can pull them out. They're really quick to put in, and really quick to take out. Unlike the Walmart ones that you buy, they take a few minutes to get in and everything. And pulling them out is no problem. Then fast forward now, of course I'm here in Brazil, I'm gigging, and then one night we were playing, and I noticed that it just seemed like the music was going through the earplugs and striking a nerve in my ear, especially in the left ear. It's like it's like nothing I could do seemed to stop that sound. And I didn't know what it was. I kept pulling the plug out and pulling it back in. And when I got home that night, it's like, wow, I could really hear an elevation in the ringing in the ear. And it seemed like it was mainly just coming from the left ear. And so at the same time, after we got done with the gig that night, I had to take a trip. My wife and I took a trip going up to the northeast, going to the beach. That's where everybody goes to the beach in Brazil, the northeast of Brazil. So while we were up there traveling, we're in the car, and it's like, wow, I'm like telling my wife, man, this ringing is just like, it's really loud, and I'm kind of like very uncomfortable. Now, tinnitus doesn't hurt. It's just what freaked me out was just that there was an elevation in the sound, and I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't get it to go back down. And then I remember like the next day, my wife were out at the beach, we're taking photos, and I like a lot of times I put the camera on a tripod, and the first thing I noticed when I went to focus was that I couldn't hear the autofocus beep. When you focus, there's a little beep, and it shows you that you've hit focus. So I didn't think about it at the time that had something to do with my hearing. I actually thought maybe the autofocus is just broken. So when I went to take some pictures of my wife and I, you put it on the timer. There's a beeper that goes off on the camera, and I couldn't hear it. And I asked my wife. I said, "Can you hear the camera beeping as we're taking the photos?" She goes, "Yeah, I can hear it beeping." And I'm like, "Oh, now it's worse. The elevation is higher, and now I can't hear the beeping on the camera." And then later I found out why. So when we get back to Brasilia from our trip, I went to an ear doctor, and he does the examinations of the ears, and he said, there's actually nothing wrong with your ears. There's nothing wrong with them. He said, but I'm going to send you to this lady. And it turned out I knew the lady because she goes to the church that I go to, and she's going to give you like an ear test. And the ear test was, from what I remember, you put on these headphones, and then she does a series of beeps. And whenever you hear a beep, you raise your right hand if it's in the right ear, and vice versa like that. So I'm doing the test, and beep, I hear some kind of beep, and the beep is from the high, mids, and lows. And so I'm raising my hand, and I'm thinking I'm really doing good, that I can hear all these beeps, So when I get done with the test, I said, how did I do? She said, well, you have a hearing loss in the higher register. She said, every time I did the higher register beeps, you couldn't hear it, so you didn't raise your hand. But she said, that's normal for someone your age. Someone my age? Okay, so she said, it's just normal hearing loss. It's nothing to be concerned about. Everything else checked out well. So I went back to the doctor, told him the results of what happened, and I told him, I've been wearing earplugs, and he said something like, you need to change your plugs every year. He said, because what happens is that your ears change every year, the shape inside. And so what had happened was the earplugs that I was using, even though they were good at one time, years had gone by, the ear had changed, and they weren't fitting as snug as they should have been. So I went and got some custom-made, I don't know if you can see them here, custom-made silicone earplugs. They're very comfortable, and again, they're like less than $30 here in Brazil, and the ones I got in the U.S. were like $145. So this is actually my second pair since I had that crisis. Now in Brazil, everything is a crisis when you go to the doctor. When you had the crisis, he was saying what had happened was, you were bombarded with this loud music, and it caused the hearing to go up temporarily, and it eventually went back down to normal. Now occasionally, the tinnitus I can hear it in the middle of the night. Like I'll wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and it really sounds like it's super loud. But there's nothing I can do. It's terrible. I don't wish tinnitus on anybody. The best thing to do if you're a musician, especially a drummer, get some custom-made earplugs or wear those gun muffs. When I used to practice, when I could practice, when I had a place to practice, I always wore gun muffs, and that protected my hearing. And then with the custom-made plugs, now I can sit down behind the set right now. I can play with confidence. I'm not shy because I know that the plugs, and I think these are like 15 dB, and they make them all the way up to 29. I don't think 29, you can play with them. I don't think you'd get enough sound, because I think gun muffs are like 29 dB. So that's what happened, you know. The ears change, and I didn't know it. I got some custom-made plugs, and everything's fine. So that's where we're at today. I can play with confidence. I still have the ringing. I wish it'd go away, but that's the end of it. Okay, God bless, and thanks for watching.